ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Badbaby. And tonight we are so honored to have with us Robert Evans, and we're going to be talking about Planet X. How are you doing tonight, Robert? Oh, I did not unmute you. Okay, let's try that again. How are you doing tonight, Robert?
Doing okay, and it's an honor to be on your show tonight.
Hey, you prefer I call you Robert or Bob?
Either one, it's up to you.
Oh, well, my brother's name was Robert, and we called him Bob.
Okay.
Okay, well, you know, I'm so glad to have you here. I looked over some of the emails that you sent me. It'll kind of be hard for me to go back and forth because I have to answer questions in the chat. So
okay.
I'll try to post some of it if I get a chance, but I would rather just sit and chat with you.
Okay.
We've got 2 hours. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in going down the rabbit hole for Planet X?
Well, I was born and raised here in San Francisco, California on January 1st, 1959. Makes me, 56 years old. Went through the basic school system here. Spent 3 years in a Catholic school where had to swallow all that. I'm not trying to make fun of any religion here, so please don't be offended. When you go to a Catholic school, you're being taught all about the Bible and all the things went behind it and God knows what else. Had basic jobs afterwards, passing high school. My wife and I got married in 1977. Had several kids. In 1996, I decided to try and run for U.S. Congress for the 12th Congressional District here in California, in San Francisco, against Tom Lantos. Didn't do too bad the first time. Didn't win. And then I ran again in 1998. I actually hold the highest voting record of any Republican running against Tom Lantos, 126,000 votes. Then I decided I kind of liked law enforcement. Most of my family are in law enforcement. But I never could afford the academy. So I had the basics for police officer reserve. And then I started to get interested somewhere around 1907, 1908. 2007, 08. I started seeing a bunch of things on YouTube talking about Planet Nibiru, and they were showing what they had as pictures, and they were putting down star coordinates. And it was like, wow, it's kind of interesting. And that's when all of the online telescope type things started to go weird. The Microsoft Worldwide Telescope started having blacked out portions where you could physically see here's a square being blacked out. And they weren't telling you what was there or why it was doing it. Google Earth Sky. When you went on there, it automatically went right to one part showing something nice and bright that someone had taken what looked like a marker pen to circle it. The thing has been totally removed. After a while, Google Earth Sky started to have the same thing, where a part was blacked out, almost like someone took a marker pen and went back and forth on it. And it's just started to drive me nuts. What are they trying to hide?
They put that back up, you know, that blacked out square. Did you know that?
Uh-huh. And I had a friend, I think he's still my friend, I haven't talked to him for a while now, at NASA, down here at Moffett Field. And he said, what's it look like? And I sent him the picture showing the sky coordinates. And he said, I can clear that up for you. And he sent me back this really interesting DSS photograph. Now, DSS, if I remember correctly, means what you would see through your telescope. And here's 5 or 6 things orbiting nothing. Okay? And they're in a weird pattern. Okay, cool. All right. And then from the South Pole Telescope, which is run by the Jesuits, they started leaking photographs. And the people who leaked them were never found or ever heard from again. And the leaked information was really interesting. I know I sent you the pictures of them. Here's this infrared picture of a brown dwarf star with 5 or 6 planets around it. It's an infrared. And it was marked as 2007, 2008. The next leaked photograph was of the planet Nibiru. And everyone said, Bob, those photographs are fake, blah, 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 blah. Okay, no problem. And I started doing research. Okay, what would happen if I went directly back 3,600 years? All of my friends said, never read Zachariah Sitchin's books. He's a far-out weirdo. And some other terms I can't mention on the radio. And never read Belakovsky's books. Same thing. Okay. So I started digging back through ancient history on my own. And I found that something happened somewhere around 1550 to 1600. It just wasn't right. And then my friends were telling me, Bob, you got to check this book. And Marshall Masters has a real nice ebook, electronic book of the Colburn Bible. And there were parts in there that just set me nuts. I mean, the Colburn is supposedly based on information after the Exodus of the Jews and Hebrews out of Egypt. But the book doesn't call them that. The book, in certain parts, there's one big part in the Colburn that really drew my attention. And it's Ipplewer's account. Now, I had to go research Ipplewer on the Google stuff, and all of his counts are weird. I mean, they're translated into English from an ancient scroll that was found in Egypt during the 1800s. And Ipplewer is talking, at least the internet version, he's talking about something happened in Egypt that hadn't happened for a long time. And he's talking about Egypt has been totally flooded, blah, 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 blah. When I looked at the Colburn's account, which I sent to you, certain things did match up, but certain things were scrubbed from the internet version versus the electronic version from Marshall Masters. So I went out of my way and I actually went to thecolburn.com and I ordered the book, well, actually 2 books, from them down in Australia, New Zealand. And it came back to this real thick book, thin pages, and just everything. See, what I had learned during my time in Catholic school was that after the Exodus happened, the Pharaoh ordered all of the ancient tales talking about the slave's God. We wanted to know why the slave's God was more powerful than all of Egypt's magic. So they ordered them to find all of these stuff behind the slaves and evildoers. I had to look that up. The slaves basically were the Hebrews. The evildoers were a huge amount of Egyptians which latched themselves onto the Hebrews as they left. Okay, cool. The account from the Colburn talks about the omens. Now, this is from an Egyptian scribe named Ippur. Back then, the scribes were fully instructed in how to read and write, so they could pass on everything from the Pharaoh on down to the people. Basic people didn't know how to read and write unless they had had better education and they were higher up than the basic people. Ippur wrote down the entire account of the Exodus. It matches exactly the Holy Bible's account with all the jewels and the gold and whatever that were given to the slaves. It's an Egyptian account only. He never mentions names. But he also says that the destroyer was in their skies. The destroyer was a huge, reddish-looking thing which had come up on them slowly over time, and they were hearing what sounded to them like thousands of trumpets in the air. It gradually increased from a small sound to a very heavy sound. The destroyer rained down fire from the sky, burning everything that grew, destroyed everything, fields, orchards, and vines. There was nothing left. They also put down what they said was like a thick black or grayish smoke, which was so thick you could barely see through, and it was putting out the torches and the cook fires. Now, where that came from, I have no idea. So the Exodus happened. At one point, Ippur says the ground appeared to turn over. Very clearly in the Colburn version. That's not mentioned on the internet version. Anyone who looks up Ippur, I-P-U-W-E-R, on Google, many accounts, most of them say, while this sounds like the 9 plagues of Egypt, it is not the 9 plagues of Egypt. Don't be confused here. I'm sorry. All of the account by Ippur in the Colburn matches exactly the 9 plagues, because he talks about them. He talks about them because they come down from the destroyer. Now, possibly God was probably involved, more than likely, because God works in weird ways. In his way, he sent the destroyer to do what it did. You can take it that way, or you can take it a different way. My being a researcher, I've had to walk down a very thin line. As a lot of my friends said, you're a Catholic. We know you're a Catholic. Why aren't you supporting the Bible? Well, I'm sorry, too much of ancient history was included in every religion we have. At the end, near the end, Ippur said that he wished his forefathers had been nicer to the Hebrews, K-E-B-E-W-S. To me, that's very clear. Now, why isn't that being talked about. You see, the Hyksos, Hyksos, they were in charge of Upper Egypt between the 12th Egyptian dynasty and the end of the 17th Egyptian dynasty. The Hebrews were kicked out, the Hyksos were kicked out of Egypt by Akhmos and his brother, which were from Lower Egypt. Akhmos became pharaoh sometime around 1550 BCE. Akhmos in Hebrew, and this has been mentioned in several shows now, Ancient Aliens and several other different shows. Akhmos in Hebrew means brother of Moses. Ippor does not mention any names. He said that the slaves and evildoers were led out of Egypt by a priest prince of the inner courtyard of Pharaoh. Very clear. No one wants to talk about this because it adds too much reality to the Jews and the Israeli people. Yes, they were mentioning something interesting here. But there's also a part that kind of bugs me. The Hyksos were a Canaanite people. So are the Israelis. So did we have two Canaanite groups being thrown out of Egypt? Or was one Canaanite group that changed its name? Akhmos went after the Hyksos and pushed them up towards what's now present-day Jerusalem. Does that mean anything? I don't know. Okay, where did this destroyer and all this stuff go back? So I've had to go back to ancient history. The Colburn has a part in it that mentions the building of the ark. It's almost like a part that came out of the Lost Book of Enki. Because if anyone's ever read the Lost Book of Enki, tablets number 9 and number 10, they detail how Nibiru was going through our solar system for up to centuries until there was a very rare alignment of the seven, meaning from the Earth out to Pluto. And this altered Nibiru's flight path through our system, taking it closer towards Mars, also meaning it went closer towards the Earth. In the book, the Anunnaki knew this was going to be happening because they made several SARs, meaning one revolution around. One revolution is about 3,600 years. And as it got worse and worse, it started to affect the Earth. Now, if anyone's seen the movie 2012, they'll remember that towards the end of the movie, there's a Chinese monk in his monastery. And he hears something. He turns around, and here's the ocean coming over the mountains. He starts banging the gong. That I've been able to trace back to Emperor Yao, Chinese Emperor Yao, roughly around 2,900 BC. This is taken from the book The Sioux King. Supposedly, he saw something come out of the constellation of Yin, and it caused the oceans to top the high mountains of China. The emperor it took 13 years to drain the high mountain valleys of all the salt water back down to the rivers. And he had to send out 4 teams to find out where north, south, east, and west was again. I'm sorry. That is a pole shift, a geological pole shift. Earth crustal displacement. That's what they called it in the movie 2012. That's supposed to be Noah's flood. No, that was before Noah's flood. Noah's flood was around 12,900 years ago. That's what's mentioned in the Lost Book of Enki. It's also mentioned in two other books, D.S. Allen and J.B. Dallaire, Compelling Evidence of Catastrophic World Change, 9,500 B.C., and second book called Cataclysm, Compelling Evidence of a Cosmic Catastrophe in 9,500 B.C. Both books, they mention something called Phaeton, Phaeton, as a huge something that came in too close to the planet. And it caused a pole shift. Now, the Hopi people here in the United States, they have ancient prophecies and legends that go back to the end of the first Hopi world, which was destroyed by fire. It's also mentioned in the Colburn. The second Hopi world was ended by ice, also mentioned in the Colburn. The third Hopi world was something that was just fantastic compared to what we have now. They had a higher technological level than we do now. They're very clear on that. The Hopi got around in the third Hopi world by flying shields. Now, as everyone knows who's been following most of this stuff on ancient aliens and whatever else, the people over in India had the Vimanas, golden shields, flying saucers. Man traveled all around the planet. So did the Hopi. Their third world was ended by water, Noah's flood. But it also reversed the Earth's rotation. Hopi say that very clearly. That's also mentioned in When the Earth Nearly Died in the other book. Now, what happens during a Earth crustal displacement, pole shift? Something comes up along the planet or near the planet which would have a high gravitational electromagnetic pull. This grabs onto the crust of the planet Earth. It slows down the Earth's rotation. Now, where is all the water around the Earth in its deepest spots? At the equator, because of our rotation. If the rotation starts to slow down, the water settles back around the planet to its even all the way around the planet. That's your flood. Now, in the account from the Colburn about Noah's Ark, they were very clear on how it was built. They were very clear on who went on the ark. It wasn't just Noah, okay? And they were very clear on how the ark was built. It was built 3 decks high, split in 2, making 6 decks and a 7th deck on top. And on each deck, there were cisterns that were tarred inside and out. In the Lost Book of Enki, the ark was a submersible. In the description from the Colburn, you can't drink out of a tarred cistern. You'd be poisoned. They were ballast tanks. In the account, they said the destroyer showed up right on time. The ark was built in 7 days. And this thing is almost 1,000 feet long. It has the same cubit measurements as found in the Holy Bible. They said it was lifted off by the flood of water because the destroyer showed up, all the stars shifted to new positions in the sky, and the water came in. They mentioned who was taking on the ark. One person from every trade was taken on the ark. One person knew how to build chariots. Only the Hyksos introduced the chariots to the Egyptians. I'm sorry if I'm pointing a finger here or putting little dart things on the wall, making a picture here, but it's all there. I'm sorry. They had one person who knew how to build chariots. The Hyksos introduced chariots to Egypt. They said it landed on Mount Ararat. Now, I also sent you another thing that I remembered years ago seeing this TV show about these guys going up on Mount Ararat, and they actually found it, the ark. But their cameras didn't work.
They covered that up real quick, didn't they?
Yes. The ark was split in two, and it had 3 decks. They actually went on top of it. They actually walked on it. But their cameras either didn't work or the cameras were confiscated. They never said what happened. When they got back, they had a guy who was a professional artist to draw up what the ark looked like. And I gave you all those pictures. I'm not sure if you put those in your chat room or not. So the ark was found. And they've kept it really quiet. Now, this other guy, I can't remember his name right now. He did a thing with Project Camelot. I think it's Bob Dean. He talked about many years ago where a very secret team was flown up to Mount Ararat. And this team jumped out of something and they glided down onto the ark. They spent 2 weeks on and inside the ark. And they recovered a whole bunch of stuff. They were picked up later. It was all secretly put away. Okay, so that's Noah's Ark. That's the thing. Now, the Exodus. Ippelwerth said that the earth turned over. He said that the stars shifted to new positions in the sky. He said the sun and moon rose in new positions and set in new positions, and that their growing seasons were thrown off completely because when they put new seed into the ground, they rotted until they found out the new growing season. That's a pole shift. I've been able to nail down almost the exact year for the Exodus. Ippelwerth described as Pharaoh caught up to them when they're up at the saltwater marsh. They were caught by the saltwater marsh. They couldn't go anywhere. Everything was shaking. Heavy earthquakes, this and that, left and right. They said that the saltwater marsh rose above the water. They were able to run across the mud. No one thought that would happen. And they start running. Pharaoh is stopped because the destroyer is sending all this stuff down. They can hear this trumpet score that's just ear-splitting. But they also describe that the water from the marsh, from the sea, is racing out. That means a tsunami's coming in. And they were fighting in the mud. The Pharaoh had gone in there with his chariots, and they were killing all these people who had stayed behind to allow everyone else to go on. Then they heard a tremendous roar in the skies, which blotted out the sound of 10,000 trumpets. That's a pretty good-sized roar. Then the ocean came back in so fierce it threw rocks up on the shore and washed Pharaoh away. Now, everyone says that never happened. Well, about 20 years ago, they found Egyptian chariots on the bottom of the Red Sea. I didn't have a chance to send you those pictures. My friend here, I had to take him to the hospital this morning. He had some kind of really bad flu. He had like 109 temperature. They found him on the bottom of the Red Sea, and they took photographs of them. They actually dated them to about the end of the 17th Egyptian dynasty. Okay. There's the Exodus. There's the Pharaoh being destroyed. He was a Hyksos Pharaoh. No one likes to talk about it because we have to be friends with Egypt. We don't want to enrage the Muslims against their religion. We don't want to have Egypt mad at us. But they're just starting to talk. They haven't really talked about this yet. Herodotus, ancient Greek historian, he mentions several times that the sun and moon actually have shifted positions in the sky, I think at least twice. Solon, when he went to see the ancient Egyptian priests way back when, he told them about the flood. And they kind of laughed at him because the Greeks were like children with all their history compared to the ancient Egyptians. They said this had happened several times, and that as the Greeks, when they were washed away, everyone had to start over learning how to read and write and keep their history. So I really started to dig into the Lost Book of Enki. Too many things were matching up, at least in my mind, with the history stuff. I've been told by my friends to read too many books that take me back to this thing. Over in China, ancient Chinese records were recently found, and they've been translating them and putting them into English. There's this one person, his name is Mozai, M-O-Z-I. In Book 5, one of my friends had looked directly at Book 5 of Mozai of China. And about halfway down, they talk about, and this is about 1600 BCE, they talk about 3 gods coming down, aligning themselves with one warlord. Now, why doesn't anyone know about this stuff? Well, you see the person that's called the first emperor of China. He did something really interesting. He ordered everything to be destroyed and burnt before his time. That way he could be called the first emperor. But there were many other before him that he destroyed all the writings and all the stuff about them. But some of the stuff still survived. And that's what this is. Mozai of China, about 1600 BC. Now, I was digging around. I found a new dating for the eruption of the ancient island of Thera, ancient Greek island of Thera. It's now called Santorini. They've dated it now back to 1613 BC. That's right in that time with Ipuwer's description of a tremendous eruption because volcanic ash was falling all over Egypt. Ippur mentions volcanic ash in his account. I had to dig back. It took me right to the ancient island of Thera. It erupted several times and it blew itself apart. Now there's a huge ring of an island all the way around this big watery spot, and it's actually been starting to come back up. So that nails that down. Ippur's account, the eruption of Thera, all this stuff. So that's the time of the Exodus. Now, this is also backed up on the internet by the Tempest Stela of Akhmos. A stela is something the Egyptians did really good. A huge slab of something, usually granite, and they write all the stuff down. Now, Akhmos had this stela created to describe all of the damage he had repaired, temples, burial sites, blah, 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 during this massive storm that Egypt hasn't seen for a long time. And it's in hieroglyphics. It was found during the 1800s. The researchers, they put paper over it and did a carbon copy of it. Then the Egyptians put it in the bottom of the Cairo Museum, wouldn't let anyone see it again. And this describes exactly in hieroglyphics what had happened. And in this account, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and the pyramids collapsed. Very clear, the pyramids collapsed. Doesn't say which pyramids, because there's like 150 pyramids over there. But anyone who looks at the big pyramids there on Giza, they're all missing blocks. Okay? Because they were all created where they were nice and smooth down. One pyramid has what's left of the blocks almost all the way at the top. Now, the standard story is that all this stuff was pried away because they needed the blocks for doing other stuff. Let's see, the pyramids are what, 400-something feet tall? You pry away a 2,000-ton block and you push it over the side. It's going to go boom, 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 boom. It's going to tear up all the blocks underneath it. And there's going to be a huge mass of debris at the bottom. Now, if you were doing it to that one pyramid that has the blocks way at the very top and nothing down below, you're going to be killing someone. Is that what happened? I don't know. Anyone who looks at the pyramids can see it. I've seen many shows, and the outer blocks are nice and smooth. And maybe they pulled the next ones off. Who knows? I don't know. But
hey, Robert, we have a guest that has their hand raised. They want to ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Hello, Arizona.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you? I just wanted to ask if the fact that there is nothing but desert in the Middle East now and in Egypt and sand, it would make sense that there would be some kind of a catastrophe that had killed off all the plant life in that area.
And that was answered in the, thank you for the question, that was answered in the Lost Book of Enki. See, after the flood, it came time for Marduk, Enki's son, to be in charge of the planet. Enlil and the other ones didn't want Marduk to be in charge of the planet because that puts too much on Enki which is his half-brother from a different mother. So they got really ticked off at Marduk. And Marduk was having a huge amount of supporters, a huge amount. You see, during the third world of the Hopi people and this lost book of Enki, everyone spoke one language, okay? And he started building a tower in Babel, just like in the Holy Bible. So the other Anunnaki, Enlil's grandson and Enki's grandson, were given the 7 nuclear weapons they had taken from Nibiru accidentally, and they were told to use them against Marduk's supporters. So they flew off and they nuked. They nuked all the areas. I can't remember. There's that one place over in India. I keep forgetting how to pronounce the valley's name, where all the bricks that for the houses were melted, and that the people were found on the ground looking like they're holding hands and stuff. I know the Russians have said that it was heavily radiated over there. I wonder if that's where one of the areas they nuked. But in the Lost Book of Enki, they say that the nuclear sites they bombed, the radiation backfired on them. And it was going the other way. It went right back through Samaria and through what's now Saudi Arabia, and it destroyed and killed everyone.
Wow.
So I don't know what kind of nuclear weapons. It more than likely was far more modern than stuff we have. So I don't know. That's a really good question. You know, the other interesting part here about Noah and the flood. See, Enki had another half-son, a human Anunnaki hybrid son. His name was Zaya-Sudra. Another name for Noah is Zaya-Sudra. Okay?
Right.
If you follow everything that Zacharias Sitchin has put down, the Anunnaki created humanity. They came to the earth about 450,000 years ago. They needed the gold from our planet. See, each time Nibiru swings through our solar system, it's coming at a high angle, going down below our sun, then swinging back out. It comes between Mars and Jupiter, and goes out between Mars and Jupiter. They need gold, just like every spacecraft, every satellite we put up in space, we put gold around it to do what? It reflects the radiation from killing the electronics and killing all the things on the satellite so it can't work. They started doing the same thing, but they put the gold in their atmosphere. And at one point they ran out of gold on Nibiru, so they came all the way into Earth because they knew that the Earth used to be Tiamat. And Nibiru's came through at a bad time, and one of Nibiru's moons struck the Earth, splitting 1/3 of it off, causing the asteroid belt and pushing the Earth into the third orbit around the Sun. It also took one of Tiamat's original moons.
So you just raised an interesting question for me then. Nibiru does not strike us. It goes around the sun and causes havoc. It causes the pole shift and the crust and everything. But it carries a bunch of moons. So is it possible that we could get struck by a moon?
Ippawar, in his account, said the Earth was struck twice. Now, what did he mean by struck twice? I have no idea. He doesn't go any further than what he says.
But it does drag a debris field with it that are full of asteroids that we'll get hit with, correct?
And we're starting to run through that now. Numerous people have seen something explode like a...
Yeah, there were two last night. I posted them on my Facebook page. One was, I think, in Switzerland.
Yes,
and the other one was in
all
Russia.
around the planet. But you see, that's it's getting a little bit ahead, and I'll try and explain that. The ETs didn't want to intervene. They told this very clearly to Eisenhower in 1954. Okay, Roswell, 1947. 3 ships flying around Roswell were shot down accidentally or deliberately with the early Doppler radar systems. One crashed right near Roswell, 2 others crashed near but away from Roswell. Philip Corso, Corso. He wrote a book several years ago called The Day After Roswell. He was an Army, I think, lieutenant or something, and the ship that crashed, they were told about it. They went out and got it real fast and kept everyone away from it. But there was 2 survivors. One played dead, and when he thought it was all clear, he decided to try and make a run for it. The MPs shot him dead before Corso could stop him. The second one was still partially alive. The Army was given that 1 ship. The Navy was given 1 ship. The Air Force was given 1 ship. Corso went on to explain how his superiors liked what he was doing. They probably knew a little bit about what he knew. So he became a colonel back at the Pentagon. And he was put in charge of all of the foreign aircraft stuff. And he was told to go through the stuff, try to have it reverse engineered, and figure out which company could do it, and then to place that one company with that one type of instrument. And that's what they did with all the stuff. That's why we have infrared viewing stuff now, because the aliens had a black thing that went over their eyeballs. The wreckage of the ship gave them fiber optics. That was reverse engineered. That's why we have that. Supposedly they found a piece of what appeared to be a computer chip. Okay, no problem. They also found that the aliens had a goldish-looking ring sitting over their head. They couldn't figure that out until they found out that the thing uses the primal brain underneath the main brain. Now, the Russians also found this out. And they made a movie about this years ago called Firefox, where we had found out about it, and we went over there to steal the Firefox jet because it communicated with the pilot using a thing that goes over the brain. Remember that movie years ago? Where I think it was Steve, Nancy, I can't remember the actor. He took off with it, and his brain is controlling the airplane. Very fast plane. A second Russian pilot goes after him using the second copy. And the American guy was able to outfox him and get behind him and blew him out of the air. And here comes this nice Firefox. and it's controlled with the brain. They're playing with that now. So that's also reverse engineered stuff.
You have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If the Anunnaki created the human race, I don't understand. There's a concept of God that I have, which
I'm not trying
God
to.
isn't.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
No. I understand what you're saying, and I'm trying to walk this down a very, very, very thin line. Okay. I'm Christian. I know about God. But doing my research over the years, I've had to research on all sides. The Anunnaki claim that they created a worker race first. This worker race was digging up the gold, but it suddenly started to de-evolve back to what it was originally. Is that Bigfoot? Is that the Bigfoot things all around the planet? Then Enki, with his half-sister, tried to make a smart human. And they created Adama. That's what they use in the book. We call him Adam, no problem. And they create a wife for him. And they create Cain and Abel. So is Zecharia Sitchin deliberately trying to mess up his books? No one has ever accused him of doing that. He said he translated the Sumerian tablets on his own. No one has ever said he was a lying cheat or anything. He says this is what the Sumerians wrote down. Our Bible was supposedly done about 2,000 years ago. Emperor Constantine, if I remember correctly, he finally went to Christianity, but he wanted one book. Now, I've seen all the shows banned from the Bible 2, 3, 4, whatever, where he ordered all of the people who said they were following Christianity to get their butts down to Constantinople or someplace. And they were basically locked in a room. They had thousands of scrolls and books. All had to be pared down to the Bible. And when they made the Bible, all the other stuff was called heresy and was ordered to be burned. All this account that was put together making the Colburn Bible. Every book that was made at this one town were all called Bibles. All this stuff at some point was declared heresy and was ordered to be burned. But it went underground. It stayed underground up until about 1100s, 1180, something like that, where the Pope found out about it and he ordered it to be destroyed. So they attacked this one monastery, but they were given a warning that they were coming. So they were able to save roughly half of all the old manuscripts. The other half was burned. Okay? In the Lost Book of Enki, it's very clear they created Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel. Cain killed Abel. Cain was marked with a certain mark on his forehead, and he was sent to the other side of the planet because he was banished. In the Bible, Cain started all over again. He had a wife. He created a new civilization. But the Bible only mentions Adam, Eve, and Cain. because Abel's dead. So where did Cain find another wife?
Right.
Okay?
I've always wondered that. Yes.
Yeah. You know, I'm not trying to make fun of any religion. Okay? I want to try and make it very clear. I've had to walk down a very thin line here.
Right.
In the 1180s, the Pope created the Templars and the Hospitallers. No one ever talks about the Hospitallers. They went to Jerusalem, and about 9 years later, they found something that made them extremely rich. They went back to England, went back to Europe, and they were more powerful than any king because the Pope backed them, and they had something that made them extremely wealthy. They found something. They created the Rosicrucians, the Illuminati, and the Freemasons. The Hospitallers went to Malta, and after several years in major battles, they became the Knights of Malta. My wife is Maltese. We went to the island of Malta last year. So all I could see was just the Maltese cross, left and right, left and right. And then one of my friends changed his picture on his Facebook page. And here's a ancient, we're talking 6,000 something years old, wall carving of an Anunnaki. It's a wall carving I've never seen. All the other ones, you have the very long, the beard, and you're standing, have certain things in their hands. And here's this one Anunnaki pointing to something. But around his chest is a chain. At the end of the chain is a circle. Within that circle is an 8-pointed cross. I had to dig that. I had to research that up. That is the mark of Cain.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay. Is from your studies, etc., have you found that there is a God, the Spirit, a spirit, not male, not female, but spirit? I have experienced something with the Bible that I can't explain.
Sure.
After I was redeemed, or what is termed born again, which I hate that term now because it's so bandied about. But I accepted Jesus in my heart, and the night that happened, or the night after that happened, I looked at the Bible, and the words literally jumped off the page at me and vibrated.
Okay.
And I got tremendous revelation from the scripture that did that.
Yeah. Now, there's no way I could find God, himself, herself, themselves in any book. Okay? No book says and shows God. Possibly the Holy Bible does. I believe in a higher source. Okay? I know there's a God. There's a supreme being. Okay? Now, the supreme being is being called by many names all the way around the planet. Now, maybe God originally started as one, tried starting civilization, and they're not listening to me, so I'm going to go to another person and try and start it again. They didn't listen again. I'm going to another person. We're going to start this again. With everything I found during my research, And believe me, I tore the internet apart. I found nothing in books or other stuff that you and everyone else listening could not find on your own. That's why I have to be very careful when I talk about religion. This stuff, okay. Eisenhower met with 3 alien races in February of 1954. One was the Greys, one was a reptilian-looking race, the other was an interdimensional race called the Etherians. President Truman, before he went out, he started up MJ-12, Majestic 12. Eisenhower was going to try to go against Majestic 12 after the 2-day meeting. He had the Bishop of Los Angeles, Francis McIntyre, to be a spiritual guide for all of humanity at these meetings. A lot of other people were there, a hand-picked team of Western scientists. After the meeting was over, they were all sworn to secrecy and had to write a thing saying they'd never talk about this again. Bishop McIntyre refused because they wanted him to never even talk to God about it. That didn't work. Several days later, he left to go back to Rome. On his trip across America, they had to stop refuel. The men in black tried to force their way on board his plane. They ordered him, since he was there personally by Eisenhower's request, they ordered him to swear to God to never talk about it again. He had them thrown off with Swiss guards. He went and talked to Pope Pius XII back at Rome. Pope Pius was angry because the bishop told him everything he heard, everything he saw. He told him about 2 alien races that were living here on the earth there in 1954. He was angry and he was afraid that the Catholic religion would lose all of its followers. They knew there was aliens on the planet. It was forbidden to talk about it. But he entered into a joint venture with the United States. They started holding secret meetings with these aliens. Eisenhower supposedly also made several treaties with one or more of these 3 aliens. And
that where he cut the deal to allow them to experiment on human beings and look the other way in exchange technology?
Supposedly, that's where it came. Supposedly. They were allowing them to abduct certain humans, and they were allowing them to do certain technology on different animals, horses, cattle, sheep. In the book, Lost Book of Enki, those were brought here from Nibiru to the earth. That's weird. Okay?
I think that's where all these people that are missing from the state parks go.
I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. Early 1955, Eisenhower somehow was going to Holloman Air Force Base. Air Force One lands, stops at the end of the runway. Eisenhower ordered everything to be turned off and shut down. He specifically ordered that the radar system, I mentioned the name earlier, my mind's going blank right now. The same radar system that shot down the 3 alien ships over Roswell. Telephones, everything. Not too long afterwards, 2 flying saucers arrived. One stayed hovering, one landed in front of Air Force One. Eisenhower was seen going out of Air Force One, entering the flying saucer. stayed in there for roughly 45 minutes to an hour. As soon as he left, flying saucer lifted off. Then they decided to play a game. They headed straight towards a telephone lineman that was off the base on a telephone. And they buzzed him. He had to jump for his life. Eisenhower had his meetings there, and then Air Force One flew out at high speed, treetop level, scaring everyone that was outside the base because they flew right over the houses. When he got back to Washington, D.C., he ordered everyone to not talk about flying saucers or aliens ever again. He handed everything over to Majestic 12. Now, you see, after the first meeting, Eisenhower was going to go public. This is all detailed by one person's letter that was, trying to find his name right now real quick. He wrote a letter. He was there with Randolph Hearst, and let's see, I'm trying to find his letter real quick. I know I sent you a copy of it. My mind goes blank sometimes when I'm talking on radio shows. Yeah, anyway, he was there with Randolph Hearst. When he got out of the meeting, after he swore everything he wouldn't ever talk about, he wrote to his friend, Gerald Light. He wrote a letter to his friend telling him it's all real. And really interesting, he says he was there and he saw a hand-picked team of Western scientists with their jaws dropped because they saw a solid matter dematerialize before their eyes. Dematerialization. I had a friend years ago that did a LexisNexis search for that term. It was not found until Star Trek 1965 of anyone ever using that term before. He said that Eisenhower was going to go public if the other agencies could be held off. And if he was able to, it was going to be about March of 1954. He was going to go public. Well, that never happened. So I'm quite sure that Majestic 12 took over. Now, Majestic Eisenhower was followed by Kennedy. I'm quite sure Eisenhower told something to Kennedy because President Kennedy, after he was in office, started to go unannounced to numerous military bases. He wouldn't talk to the officers. He would only talk to the enlisted people. And then at one point, he was so enraged about what he didn't know, he ordered all of the stuff about the flying saucers and aliens on his desk before he got back from Dallas, Texas. Now, the BBC, about 20 years ago, did a nice article about President Kennedy and the aliens. And they did a freedom search, and they pulled up these two documents from the desk of President Kennedy. He ordered all this stuff on his desk by the time he got back from Dallas, Texas. We already know what happened in Dallas, Texas. President Reagan, he seems to be out of the loop. But at one point, he talked to Gorbachev at a meeting, and they were both talking, and they knew something. They knew something, and he wanted to know if that aliens were ever come down and attack us, would the Russians come in and we both work together? and Gorbachev said yes. Reagan went before the United Nations several times. He said, what if this stuff, we already knew about this stuff? I don't have the exact what exactly he mentioned, but I remember seeing it several times. General MacArthur had several speeches where he felt that the next war would be from those up in space. General MacArthur. Clinton, President Clinton, he was asked about aliens at one point, and he said, well, he doesn't know about them, and he'd like to know who does. Okay. All right. That's 1955. 1980. Pope John Paul II. Pope John Paul II goes to a town over in Germany to meet with numerous. Let me back a second. At the end of the 1954 meeting, aliens couldn't get our nuclear weapons in exchange for technology, but they offered their help and support with a massive something that was going to be coming up real soon, caused by a rogue planet and its brown dwarf star. Eisenhower didn't believe him, told him to book it out and don't ever come here again, or we'd blow him up in the skies. 1955 meeting. Pope Pius XII also met with the Anunnaki in the Vatican, and that caused quite a stir. He described them as being a warrior race. He knew they came from Nibiru. That kind of stayed silent for a long time. Pope John Paul II, in 1980, he goes before this group of paying Catholics and one German reporter. The German reporter's questions kept asking about the third secret of Fatima. Pope John Paul II gave up and he said the other popes before him wouldn't talk about it because they didn't want the communists to start coups around the planet. But what if it was in writing that the oceans would affect all the continents, killing millions within minutes? I sent you a copy of this. It has the web page on it. Why talk? He goes on saying, pray, 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 all this stuff. He says, even though your prayers will help alleviate the problem, it won't deny that it's going to be coming. He was talking about a pole shift. When the oceans cover the continents, killing millions within minutes. The Vatican played down a couple days later what he said. The next year, he was almost assassinated. When the Pope recovered, he went right to the jail cell of the assassin, almost assassin, and off the record, he spoke with him for almost 2 hours. Off the record. He never mentioned that warning for the rest of his life. Okay, St. Malachi. How many people know about St. Malachi and his prophecies? St. Malachi, back in the 1100s, he went to Rome. He had a dream, and his people that were around him, they wrote down everything very detailed. He spoke of all 111 popes till the end of the Vatican. Pope number 111 would be from the Benedictine order. We had Pope Benedict. He's also from the Benedictine order. St. Malachi was 100% on all of his prophecies. Pope Benedict retired, first pope to retire in 600 years. For whatever reason, I've heard many different reasons, after he retired and Pope Francis became Pope 112, he went on several German radio shows, and I forgot to send that to you. And he blasted the Jesuits and their alien agenda. You see, several things happened. 1980, Pope John Paul II. 1983, NASA scientists saw something very hot and very large out beyond Pluto. It was between 4 to 8 times the size of the planet Earth. But NASA said, no, you guys don't know what they're talking about, blah, blah, blah. So we're pulling the story. But they had several different scientists working on it. One of them was Robert S. Harrington. He was from the Naval Institute. Robert S. Harrington did the best research on the planet Nibiru. He said it did not have an elliptical orbit, it had a regular orbit. I wonder how he knew that. He said it wasn't on the ecliptic plane of all of our planets. It was at a higher plane, so it was raised above our ecliptic, so it came through at an angle going downwards. How did he know that? At some point, Robert S. Harrington didn't want to work with NASA anymore. He was going to do a press conference. So in early 1993, before he called a press conference, suddenly he died of a very rare cancer. Interesting. There were all kinds of talk about that. It's also mentioned in the movie 2012. Although they use the leader of the Louvre, the French Louvre, and he's going to go public. And he's assassinated before he could talk. Was Robert S. Harrington assassinated? Or did he actually die from a very rare form of cancer that his friends didn't know about? Okay. Mid-1990s, an Israeli Vatican U.S. space probe, very advanced space probe, called the SILO, S-I-L-O-E. Israel, the Vatican, U.S. It was built at Area 51 with alien human technology. It was launched by the Aurora spacecraft, which supposedly doesn't exist, although I had pictures of it. It went out from the Earth all the way out past Pluto and met up with the planet Nibiru. It orbited it for a couple of days or whatever. It videotaped it. Then it returned, from what I'm told, in less than a month to the Earth. It downloaded everything to a secret Jesuit base up on a heart facility up in Alaska. That's mid-1990s. Early 2000, a high-ranking Jesuit priest is sent out from the Vatican to speak with Cristoforo Barbato, an Italian reporter. He tells him everything because none of the world governments are warning their people about what's coming. Cristoforo writes many articles which are never published in the United States, only over in Europe and in Italy. He talks to his friend Lucas Scantamburlo, tells him everything he wants to tell him, not the entire truth that the high-ranking Jesuit priest told him. He did a nice Project Camelot video in 2008 called The Return of Planet X. He tells him that, yes, Eisenhower was there with Bishop McIntyre, and that, yes, the Pope knew about this, yes, the Pope knew about the aliens, and blah, 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 all the way down. Project Camelot, when it first started, and I sent you this earlier, you want to be called Holiday or Mary or what?
I'm Badbaby.
Oh, Badbaby, okay. Everyone started to hear about the Doomsday Seed Vault. 60 Minutes did a special on that years ago, where it had plant seeds from every known plant around the planet. 60 Minutes caught on to it only by the billionaires of the planet Earth who paid for it. From Rockefeller and Bill Gates all the way down. They paid for it. That's how they caught on to it. Project Camelot, the one person, I don't know his name's never been mentioned. He was a high-ranking engineer up in Norway. They were building the deep underground military bases in Norway. The deep underground military bases were for the elite only, not the average person. They were about 2,000 feet down, and he decided to turn politician. So he outed the deep underground military bases. He said they were being built and were built because Planet X was coming in. And that Planet X would do certain things to the planet and everyone else would die. Okay. NASA imaged a brown dwarf star which orbits around our solar system that we call Nemesis in 2007, 2008. It was imaged by the South Pole Telescope, which is run directly by the Jesuits. This Nemesis brown dwarf star has 7 planets. 6 are regular planets. 1 is a dwarf planet. We call the dwarf planet Sedna, S-E-D-N-A. Anyone has a astronomy program on their laptop or desktop or iPad, they can call it up. Okay, here's the entire solar system. Neat, all right. Click on the dwarf planet Sedna. It has a tremendous orbit. Back off. This orbit's virtually circular. And there's our little tiny solar system way down there in the middle. Okay? What the heck is it orbiting around? It's not orbiting around our sun. It's orbiting around nothing. NASA also leaked with the South Pole Telescope in 2008 a picture of the planet Nibiru. And they have arrows going out to all its moons. Interesting. Then, in 2009, leaked information by the NASA scientists. See, the NASA scientists don't like the fact that regular people are being left out of this stuff. A lot of the other countries around the planet are also irritated. They're not being told about some of this stuff. But they started leaking different pieces by drip, by drip, by drip. And this dripping allowed another group, and I can't mention their name, allowed them to put together the brown dwarf star and 6 planets. And they were able to put together that interacting with our solar system. So these 6 planets supposedly are rotating from 2009 to December 21st, 2012. Planet number 6 is seeing different positions, different AUs out working its way in. So at some point, NASA projected that on December 21st, the end of the Mayan and Aztec calendars, everyone was expecting something big, that Planet 6 would be 20 AUs away from entering into our solar system. 20 astronomical units. One astronomical unit is 93 million miles from the Earth to the Sun. So this is 20 AUs away from coming into our solar system. Interesting. So they knew we wouldn't see anything on December 21st. Then all the U.S. government agencies started buying up massive amounts of ammunition, all the way down to the post office. Massive amounts of ammunition and guns. Then they started building all the FEMA camps across the United States. I've checked that. We have FEMA camps from east to west coast down to the Gulf of Mexico up to the border of Canada. Okay.
And they also, in the FEMA camps, they have termination centers.
Yeah. And the United States government paid for millions of these huge caskets that can hold anything from 3 to 5 people. And they're buried by the millions outside of each of the FEMA camps. Then there's the Georgia Guidestones.
I've been seeing videos of semis moving them around lately.
Yes, and it was that early in this year, there was military stuff all around on the East Coast, back to the middle of the thing. Yes, I've been following that. You see, back during this 2012 times, they actually took many of the huge 3-level car carriers, and they were making them into prison cars. They were welding bars across all the open windows. People, you see them on the train every time. They also had shackles being welded inside. I wonder what those were for. Okay, before President Obama became president, before he was even a senator, millions of people were getting nightmares and dreams. They were dreaming of a huge flood coming in, and they were survivors of this huge flood. But they called it the hiding times. Everyone was hiding from the black helicopters, because when you were picked up by a black helicopter, you were taken to a FEMA camp. There was a black U.S. president before Obama, before Senator Obama, or Congressman Obama, I forgot which name. So no one wanted to be picked up by these black helicopters. Now, back in 2012, I didn't have a chance to send this to you. There was a radio show on Orion Talk Radio. The person was a person called Just Call Me Kit. She has a YouTube channel. She hasn't been doing anything since 2012, 2013. And she declares herself being a Tea Party Republican who was following all the spending put down by the government. She knew exactly what website to go to. And she's detailing all this money being put out to these very quick things to be done. They were pulling all of the infrared, the towers from all the away from all of the coastlines. They were doing this. They were doing that. She picked up this one thing where they were building four huge dry food and frozen food things in the middle of the United States. They started off at $74 billion. And they were to be finished in a little bit over 1 year. This is 2012. The states were divided up between A, B, C, and D. A had so many states, B had so many states, C so many, D so many. Here's all this massive food and stuff in the middle of our country. She hasn't been heard from since. I'll send you a copy. I have a copy of the radio show where you can listen to it and you can see exactly what she puts down. It's a 50-minute something, and she just mentions way too many things. These towers, satellite towers, whatever around you, they all had to be moved in less than 1 year. And they were going overboard, giving the companies government equipment to help them get it done. To do this, do that, do this, do that. Something no contractor ever does. Contractor has to use their own people, and they're just told to do it.
I had read that they're going to use the towers as a form of control afterwards.
I've heard that also. You see, I also sent you a copy of the lab report of the chemtrail samples from 2006, 2007. See, they were dumping chemtrails all over Europe during this time. They were just starting to do it over the United States. They're not contrails. Anyone who looks up in the sky sees a high-flying airplane, and they have this trail that goes miles behind it. Contrails dissipate rather quickly. I see them almost every day in the skies over Pacifica here. And I know the chemtrails. The chemtrails slide left and right, and they make the sky look really cloudy, where it's like mist or something.
Yeah, we've done many shows on the chemtrails.
Well, that lab report I sent you, you probably haven't had a chance to look at it yet. It goes into very good detail, has nasty photographs in there. They discovered that they were dumping man-made nanofibers over Italy and over the state of Texas. That's where those two samples came from. And they called it Morgellons disease. And they give...
We're doing the same nanofibers. I have a test that they were spraying them over Texas in 2004. They've been doing the nano for quite a while. I actually had a guest on the show a few weeks ago that he had designed a bucket to put your leg in and use vinegar and salt, I think it was. And he coils the bucket with copper wire and hooks it up to a DC charger, and it actually pulls the nanobots and the Morgellons out of your body.
Good. See, because the chemtrails are doing multiple things. They're also hiding Nibiru's moons. which have been seen since April 10th, 2015. See, I have a friend that's an astronomy person. He's an astronomer. And he said, Bob, what are you talking about? All this stuff. So I said, I've got this leaked information. He said, send it to me quickly. So I did. So where'd you get this stuff? I said, well, it's been leaked by NASA. He worked out Nibiru's orbiting speed, and he said we wouldn't see it until November, December 2014. That's the first image I found over South Carolina showing Nibiru. See, we've been seeing...
I've had a lot of people. I've had Dawn Hull on the show. She gets a lot of images, and there's a lot of people that are getting images. But you do have a question in the chat. The question is, I heard Gil Bazar talk about that he thinks for this March or April is slim for an event to occur now.
Well, I can't disagree and I can't agree with him, okay? Because we first started to see a different moon in the skies over the Earth on April 10th, 2015. It was taken by the Neumayer station down in Antarctica. April 10th, 2015. Here's this moon. See, Neumayer station and all the stations down there with their observatories were looking for one thing only. They were tracking Nibiru for the Jesuits. So they were always looking at this one point in the sky, and I have the photographs to prove it. And this one thing became crystal clear in black and white on April 10th. Here's this moon that has stripes on it almost like Jupiter. We can't see Jupiter from the planet Earth, can we? It's like a little dot or a big dot up in the sky. Here's a moon, very clear, in the skies over Antarctica. Then one of my friends, on April 29th, 2015, sees the exact same thing in her skies over South Carolina, but it's in color. Then my friends in Denver see it. My friends in South Africa see it. So, I mean, these web cameras are picking it up left and right. So no one's faking it. No one's doing Photoshop with it. They're seeing it up in their skies. And it's not our moon. So our moon has a distinct shape and a certain look to it. This is something else's moon. Then a second one.
We're showing a lot of signs, too. I don't know if you saw the posting I put up today where there was in Harrison Township, Michigan. They had black, like tar, that came out of the sky, and it went all over everybody's cars. It rained out of the sky.
That's some of the after effects of stuff that's with... See, we're seeing Nibiru's moons. We cannot see Nibiru itself. Nibiru comes through our system clockwise. Everything in our solar system except for Pluto orbits counterclockwise. Pluto orbits clockwise, just like Sedna does. Pluto has a very steep angle to its ecliptic, its orbit, just like Sedna does. Every other planet in our system has a down tilt to its orbit, except for the Earth. And they're also down almost the same angle like Sedna. Robert S. Harrington said that Nibiru comes through our system clockwise. It's at a downward tilt, just like Sedna. Years ago, I talked to one of my friends, and he said he knew a person over in England, can't mention his name, who is really good with Photoshop, knows how to do all images. So I gave him all the images I had. And that was these images showing the 6 planets going around Nemesis. And he was supposed to put it over our solar system at the exact angle that AstroViewer shows Sedna. AstroViewer, a free program, shows Sedna at a very steep angle coming through. And he did so. And the guy was really happy with what he did. He said, God, you know, this is, you know, I'll have this right to you the next morning. He was going to send it, and I was going to pay him back for sending it. Next morning, nothing arrived. My friend gave me a call 2 days later, said, you know what happened to my friend? No, I didn't know. He was getting ready to ship the stuff off to you when men in suits went into his house, took the information, every information, including his computers, and told him in certain words never to talk to me again. Interesting. So I'm a complete nerd. I'm worse than a nerd on a computer. I don't know how to use Photoshop. One of these days I'm going to try and get stuff done.
Let me address guest 16 again. I have had Gil Bazard and Bob Fletcher both on the show, and also Terrell. I put Terrell's update in the chat, and Terrell is predicting that around March 7th, that there's going to be some kind of an event that's probably earthquake, said, because of the position of our planet with Nibiru and the solar flares that are going to come off of it.
Okay. 4 moons. 3 whitish-looking moons, or bluish with the first one, are being seen in the skies around the Earth. The 4th moon is a reddish color to it. Very clear reddish hue to it. It's being caught numerous times over Mexico by the places where they have the webcams. It's been caught many times over Europe. I sent you most of those pictures. I have a tremendous amount of photographs of this stuff, and I have a number of people who follow everything I do, and they try and take apart, debug everything.
Do you have a web page, Bob?
I post everything on my Facebook page, Robert H. Evans Jr.
Okay.
So all the photographs are on there. These things are getting larger and larger and larger in our skies. The reddish-looking moon, seen over what is supposedly Switzerland, is about the same size as our moon right now. The reddish-looking thing over Mexico, it's getting bigger and bigger. Your friend, Dawn Hull, is also my friend. She's been following my stuff because I only send her copies of stuff. She has a very expensive infrared camera. It can take photographs on the infrared band, meaning anything that's dark or whatever.
She also gets followed around by the men in black.
She's told me that several times, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, she had told me a story about when she was taking her mother to the doctors, and they ran her off the road. And her mother pleaded with her to please stop taking pictures and putting them up because her life's in danger. But, you know, it just shows you the extremes that they'll go to try to keep this quiet.
Exactly. Now, one of the best photographs I was given was by a friend over in Florence, Italy, because this thing's being seen more over Europe than it is here in the United States because of all of our chemtrails that are trying to hide it.
Yeah.
This one person over in Florence, Italy, didn't like the horizon looking out her window. So she took a photograph, a real good photograph, on January 2nd this year. And she tried to have it enhanced. It didn't look right because something was jumping out on her horizon. Her horizon was not clear. It was kind of cloudy. So on January 8th, it showed itself again. She took another good photograph. She had the person had it expertly enhanced, not once, but twice. And this thing on her horizon started to jump out at her, like a huge sun-like thing. And this thing was huge, far larger than our sun in our skies. The photograph was reversed. So what was heat suddenly is now black. And it just floored everyone on Facebook looking at this monstrous sun-like thing being hidden on her horizon. You see, Ippelwer described the destroyer as a huge red thing in their skies over Egypt. He said that at one point it took up 1/5 of their skies from the horizon looking upwards. That's how big it was during the Exodus. This thing in this one photograph is getting really close to that size. Dawn Hull, up there in Washington, she's been taking photographs of her cloudy skies every morning at the same times, and sometimes at evening. And she's picking up huge reddish things with her infrared camera.
Well, you know how Facebook changed that only certain friends can see certain friends' posts? And
yes.
Now, for some reason, I don't see anything Dawn puts up. And I think it's because I had her on the show. I can message her and, go to her page, look her up, but I never see any of her posts.
She's on my stuff all the time, so I'm constantly going there checking out and putting them on my stuff. Now, yes,
it has to do with
if you go to Facebook,
show,
if you go to Facebook,
down.
Yeah, exactly. If you go to Facebook and you look for Robert H. Evans Jr., you say you want to be a friend, I'll see the friend request, and I'm almost accepting everyone to be friends. I say, welcome, friend, and have a nice little smile behind it. And a lot of the friends are hearing me on different shows. I've been on several different shows over the last couple of years. Third Phase Moves.
Last 7 minutes of our show, honey.
Right,
we are going to have you back next week because I want to go into what's happening to our planet right now.
Well, NASA, with their satellites, SOHO satellite since 1996-97, it's been photographing alien starships coming into our system. Now, NASA said very clearly they were debugging the SOHO satellite from 1999 to 2012, and everything was debugged. Those things are still being seen. They're also showing that they're on our side. They're clearing the heavens, where these ships have massive beams going out hitting things. They're clearing the asteroids and whatever's in the path of the planet Earth.
Well, NASA is also very quiet about what's coming in the atmosphere now, because
and that's the one thing I hold against MUFON. I joined MUFON thinking that they would help me. Here's all these photographs. I have over 3,000 images coming from every NASA satellite, even the U.S. Navy's SETI satellites, which are on stereo ahead, stereo behind. And everyone at MUFON, except for Lorian Fenton, said they're garbage. They're this, they're that.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, that these pictures aren't genuine. But, you can tell if it's lens flare. And there are too many images where, people have gone, what's this? And then took their phone over and said, now there's something over here. That's not lens flare.
Exactly. Up until sometime in 2011, these weird winged-looking ships head back or come away from the sun in every photograph. Starting at some point in 2011, NASA was catching them coming out of what I call warp speed, because it's a gigantic flash, and this thing's caught coming out of the flash. If anyone follows Star Trek, the Enterprise comes out of warp. It's a huge flash, and it quickly decelerates to space speeds. And this was caught numerous times. In fact, in 2012, I actually have 2 ships coming out of these flashes, heading right towards the cameras. My friend at NASA, okay, I want to see that first one you gave me. He filtered it a certain way, and he told me there was no way in heck that was photoshopped. It's real.
Well, and then why are they killing all the astronomers? That's another good question. Okay. Just like in the movie 2012, all the scientists were being killed off. Remember the guy that used to be on Cheers? And he became a congressman briefly? He was the bartender? And he was in the movie 2012, and he's got these 2 huge things showing he's dead, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. You see, Hollywood's been warning about this for a while. ID4, Independence Day 4. The president was outed for being out of the loop of the aliens in Area 51. Deep Impact with Morgan Freeman, black U.S. president. He accidentally outs the deep underground military bases were being built all around the planet, and they can only hold about 2,000 people. Everyone else was on their own. Battle L.A. was talking about, and I couldn't send you these photographs, I'm sorry. I'll get them to you. Talks about asteroids dumping into the world's oceans, and these aliens get off the asteroids. That was Comet Elenin, and it wasn't a comet. Amateur astronomers were following it very clearly. Very clearly. My NASA friend started to enlarge the photographs. Then an article came out of Russia saying that Elenin was being followed and in direct communications with a Jupiter-sized planet that was following right behind. Then there was an article from China saying that Elenin had starships piggyback to it. So my friend went well out of his way, and you wouldn't believe what was found on the back of that thing. Even he told me he'd never seen a massive energy field, his exact terms, on the back of a tiny, tiny little comet. You want to see my website, starshipsaroundthesun.com. Look at the photographs. You'll see some of the photographs. You can find me on Facebook.
Robert H. Evans, Jr.
Well, we want to thank you, Robert, for all your time tonight. We appreciate it, but we're out of time now. So
I'm just giving you a little
come
bit.
back, and we're going to go over some of the things that are happening to our planet right now, the effects, and how much time do we have left. But I want to thank you for joining us tonight, and it was a delight having you start from the beginning and bring us up to date.
And I'm honored to be on your show.
And you stay safe over there where you're at.
Yeah, all my friends. And the Men in Black haven't seen you yet. They've taken out 2 desktop computers and 15 laptop hard drives. Viruses.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me. I've been going through a lot lately for what I've been talking about, so I can relate to that, brother. On that note, I'm going to thank you and call it a night, and we will have you come back next week, and we'll pick it up from there.
You got it. No problem.
Thank you, Robert. And
Thank
I
you
do have a question in the chat. If you look at what the topic was tonight, it's Planet X. So anyways, join me Wednesday in the 46333 window at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be talking about health and holistic healing. And then next week we are going to have Robert come back. And from there, I have not done any bookings because I haven't been feeling well, so I have no idea what I'm going to be booking after Robert comes back. But we are looking forward to talk to some more about Planet X next week. And I'm also going to go over the updated volcano activity, the fish die-off, and line this all up in relation with what's coming at our planet and what we have in store. My advice for everybody out there is not to be afraid. Get yourself prepared for a disaster of some type, and get yourself straight with the Lord, because we never know when our time is up. But anyways, I want to thank you all for joining me,